1. The beggar who sought a new fate. Once there was a beggar. Every day he walked the streets, hand outstretched, hoping for mercy in the form of a coin or a crust of bread. But unlike many others, this man held a deep longing in his heart. He didn't want to spend his life surviving. He wanted to live. He wanted change. So, little by little, he began saving food. 1 grain at a time. Days became years, and still the pile grew painfully slow. He couldn't understand why. Is someone stealing from me? He wondered. One night, hidden in the shadows near his secret stash, he discovered the truth. A large rat was slipping in to feast on his hoarded food. In fury, he leapt out and shouted, "Why steal from me? There are wealthy houses filled with grain, yet you come here, to me, who worked so hard to save this?" The rat looked at him calmly and said, "Because your fate only allows this much. No matter how hard you try, you'll never gather more." Stunned, the beggar asked, "But why? Why is my fate so cruel?" The rat answered simply, "I don't know. Ask the Buddha." And so, with fierce determination, the beggar set off. He would walk across the land, begging as he went just to find the Buddha and ask, why had life given him so little? His journey was long, filled with hunger and fatigue. One night, he came upon a mansion and knocked, asking only for a bit of rice. The master of the house, hearing of the beggar's mission, invited him inside with a warm heart. "If you truly are going to see the Buddha," the man said, "please ask something for me too. My daughter is 16 and has never spoken a word. I've promised, whoever can make her speak, I'll give her hand in marriage." The beggar agreed. He continued, crossing mountains, climbing hills, sleeping under trees. One day, thirsty and exhausted, he stumbled into an ancient temple on a mountainside, where a serene old monk offered him water. The beggar told the monk of his journey. The monk nodded and said, "Ask the Buddha for me, too. I've practiced for over 500 years. I should have reached enlightenment, yet I remain here, waiting." "Why?" Again, the beggar agreed. Eventually, he reached a wide river with no bridge and no boat. He cried in despair, "Is this how far I can go? Is this the end?" But just then, a giant turtle surfaced. "Why do you cry, friend?" it asked. The beggar told his story. The turtle, too, had a question. "I have cultivated virtue for 1,000 years. Why haven't I become a dragon? Ask the Buddha for me. I'll carry you across." And so, with a heart full of questions, the beggar continued, past wilderness and silence, until one day, asleep by the roadside, he dreamed. In that dream, the Buddha appeared. "You've come far," the Buddha said. "I'll answer 3 questions. Choose them wisely." The beggar thought deeply. He remembered his own suffering. But then, he thought of the turtle, the monk, and the mute girl. His own burden had become familiar, even bearable. The questions of others now felt heavier. So he asked, "Why hasn't the turtle become a dragon?" The Buddha replied, "He clings to his shell. Inside it are 2 precious pearls. Let go, and he shall rise. Second, The monk. He treasures his staff too much, said the Buddha. It is a sacred staff. If he plants it in the earth, a spring will emerge. But he must release his attachment to ascend. And the third, why can't the girl speak? She will speak, the Buddha smiled, when she meets her destined love. With that, the Buddha vanished. The beggar awoke, heartful, and began his journey home. First, he met the turtle. What did the Buddha say? It asked. Carry me across first, the beggar smiled. On the other side, he told the turtle everything. The turtle shed its shell, revealing 2 glowing pearls, and soared into the sky as a dragon. In gratitude, he gave the pearls to the beggar. Next, the beggar returned to the monk. When the old man heard the answer, he laughed in peace. He handed his staff to the beggar and dissolved into a cloud, ascending at last. Finally, the beggar arrived at the mansion. As he stepped through the gates, the young girl ran out and spoke her first words. The man who went to ask the Buddha has returned. The father, stunned, embraced the beggar and gave him his daughter's hand in marriage. And so, the beggar who once had nothing became a husband, a age, and a man of value. Why? Because when given a chance to be selfish, he chose instead to serve others. That was what changed his fate. 2. The wise monk's question. One day, an elderly monk turned to his young disciple and posed a question. If stepping forward means death, and stepping back means ruin, what will you do? The young monk paused only for a moment, then smiled and said, Master, I will step sideways. The lesson? Sometimes when life traps you between impossible choices, the solution is not to charge ahead or retreat in fear, but to look sideways, to change your perspective. In doing so, you may find paths others never imagined. 3. The man and Guan Yin in the rain. As rain poured from the sky, a man stood beneath a rooftop ledge, dry and safe. He spotted Guan Yin Bodhisattva walking past, holding an umbrella. Hoping for a ride, he called out, Guan Yin, could you offer me some shelter under your umbrella? Guan Yin replied, You are under a roof, and I am in the rain. You don't need saving. Frustrated, the man stepped into the rain and shouted again, Now I'm in the rain too. May I join you? Guan Yin answered, I have an umbrella, so I stay dry. You do not. I am not the one saving myself. The umbrella is. If you wish to stay dry, don't look for me. Look for an umbrella. The lesson? Don't wait around hoping someone will save you. Find your own umbrella. The tools that protect us are often within our reach. Responsibility starts with ourselves. 4. The mirror of self-reliance. Another day, the man visited a temple, searching once again for divine help. He stepped into the hall and found someone bowing to the Guan Yin statue. To his surprise, the person looked exactly like Guan Yin. He asked, Are you Guan Yin? The person replied, Yes. Then why are you bowing to yourself? He asked. Guan Yin smiled and said, Because even I, in difficult times, know that praying to others will never be as powerful as trusting myself. The lesson? In life's storms, your strength must come from within. The most sacred act isn't calling for rescue. It's realizing you already hold the power to rise. 5. The beggar and the god of fortune. God decided to change the fate of a beggar. He disguised himself as an old man and approached the beggar. "If I gave you 10 million, what would you do?" God asked. "I'd buy a phone," said the beggar. "A phone?" God was puzzled. "Yes, I could find crowded places to beg more effectively." God frowned. "What if I gave you 100 million?" "I'd buy a motorcycle," the beggar grinned, "so I could beg in distant towns." "And what if I gave you 1 billion?" The beggar's eyes lit up. "Then I'd buy all the prime begging spots in town and chase away all the other beggars." God silently walked away. The lesson? Your fortune won't change if your thinking doesn't. Opportunity means nothing if your mindset remains trapped. To change your life, start by changing your thoughts. 6. The 3 barrels. A carpenter once carved a tree trunk into 3 barrels. The first was used to hold waste. Everyone avoided it. The second held water. People used it daily. The third held wine. Everyone celebrated it. The barrels were made from the same tree, shaped by the same hands, but their contents determined their destiny. The lesson? In life, it's not what you are made of. It's what you choose to hold within. Fill yourself with bitterness, and people will avoid you. Fill yourself with kindness and wisdom, and the world will seek you out. 7. The fish tasted through the ears. A man brought home a fresh fish and asked his wife to cook it. Then, without waiting, he rushed off to see a movie. His wife, feeling a bit left out, asked to go too. But he said, "It's a waste for both of us to go. You cook the fish. I'll come home and tell you the whole movie while we eat." He returned later, expecting a warm dish, but the fish was gone. He asked, "Where's the fish?" His wife calmly pulled up a chair and said, "I ate it already. Now come sit down. I'll describe exactly how it tasted." The lesson? Treat others the way you want to be treated. If you offer only stories, don't be surprised when you get stories in return. 8. Outsiders calm. A father came home and saw his wife scolding their son. He ignored the scene and went straight to the kitchen. There, he found a steaming pot of wonton soup. Hungry, he helped himself. As he sipped the delicious broth, he heard his wife still scolding. He finally spoke up. "We shouldn't always discipline with anger. We need to teach with understanding." His wife snapped, "I worked hard making that soup, and our son peed in it." The father stood up, eyes wide. "Honey, take a break. I'll handle him." The lesson? It's easy to stay calm when you're not the one affected. Don't judge others too quickly. You may not know what they've been through. 9. Failing the college exam. When I failed my university entrance exam, I scored only 6 points. My friend's son, however, scored 20 and got into a top school. 9 years later, that same friend came bragging about her son's high-paying job interviews. At the time, I was reviewing his resume because I was the one hiring. The lesson? Not going to university doesn't mean you failed in life, but never striving for anything at all, that's failure. Success belongs to those who keep pushing forward. 10. Pricing the bathhouse. A man walked up to a public bathhouse. "How much is it for a bath?" he asked. "Men's section is $40, said the owner. "And the women's?" $400. The man shouted, "That's robbery!" The owner replied, "So which one are you choosing?" Without hesitation, the man handed over $400 and walked into the women's section. Inside, he found it filled with other men. One of them looked up and said, "Another one fell for it, huh?" The lesson? Good business isn't about offering the lowest price. It's about offering what people think they want at a price they're willing to pay. 11. Let go to lighten the load. A father asked his son, "Clench your fist tightly. What do you feel?" The boy replied, "Tired." "Clench tighter," the father said. "It hurts now," said the boy. "Now let go," the father whispered. The boy opened his hand and sighed. Much better. The lesson? The harder you hold on to something, the heavier it becomes. Sometimes, the peace you seek lies in simply letting go. 12. The rat in the rice jar. A rat once fell into a half-full jar of rice. At first it panicked, but soon, realizing there was no danger, it began to enjoy itself, eating, sleeping, and living comfortably. Days passed, and the rice ran low. Yet, the rat couldn't resist staying, feasting until the last grain was gone. Only then did it realize it couldn't climb out. Weak, bloated, and helpless, it starved to death in the jar it thought was heaven. The lesson? Comfort can be a trap. If you stop growing, stop adapting, and ignore looming danger, your safe haven may become your grave. 13. A love story in a coffee shop. Years ago, he was waiting for a friend at a coffee shop when a woman approached and asked, "Are you the one Auntie Wong set me up to meet?" He looked up, and instantly his heart skipped a beat. She was exactly his type. Why ruin it with the truth? "Yes," he said. "Please, have a seat." Years later, on their wedding day, he confessed, "I wasn't the person your aunt arranged." She laughed and replied, "I wasn't either. I just needed a reason to talk to you." The lesson? When fate gives you an opening, don't hesitate. Sometimes, the best stories begin with a small, harmless lie and a leap of faith. 14. The class beauty. In a university classroom, female students were voting for the class beauty. One girl, named Xiao Mei, wasn't particularly stunning. Yet, she boldly said, "Vote for me." Years from now, you can tell your husband that back in college, you were prettier than the class beauty. Everyone laughed, but also admired her wit. She won with an overwhelming number of votes. The lesson? Winning people over isn't always about being the best. Sometimes, it's about showing them how being on your team makes them better. 15. Gandhi and the shoes. While boarding a train, Gandhi accidentally dropped one of his new shoes onto the track. Unable to retrieve it, he calmly took off the other shoe and tossed it down beside the first. A puzzled bystander asked, "Why did you do that?" Gandhi smiled. "Now whoever finds the shoes will have a complete pair." The lesson? If something is lost, don't cling to the rest in vain. Letting go can turn misfortune into someone else's blessing, and that's true wisdom. 16. Two tigers, two fates. One tiger lived in the wild, the other in a zoo. Each envied the other's life. The wild one longed for security and food, the captive one for freedom in space. They decided to switch places. At first, both were thrilled, but soon the wild tiger starved to death, and the caged tiger, though free, couldn't adapt. He died of sorrow. The lesson? What you have may already be someone else's dream. Don't be so quick to trade your life away. Happiness isn't about where you are, but how you live with it. 17. Mark Twain and the Proud Woman. At a fancy dinner, Mark Twain sat next to a proud, elegant woman. He politely remarked, "Ma'am, you are very beautiful." She sneered, "Too bad I can't say the same about you." Twain smiled and replied, "That's all right. Just do what I did. Lie." The lesson? Sharp tongues often get cut by sharper wit. If you deal in sarcasm, be ready to take it just as well as you give it. 18. The optimistic cancer patient. A farmer was diagnosed with cancer. He needed surgery, but once inside, the doctors realized the tumor was inoperable. They closed him up and told him gently, "We'll talk later." But the farmer, unfamiliar with medical terms, assumed the surgery was a success. He went home happy. 6 months later, he returned for a checkup, and miraculously, the cancer was gone. The lesson? A cheerful heart is a powerful medicine. Sometimes, what heals us most isn't treatment, it's belief. 19. The crow and the dove. A crow and a dove lived in the same forest. The crow always felt unloved, always heard whispers of dislike. One day the crow turned to the dove and said, "Everyone avoids me. They say my voice is awful. I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving." The dove thought carefully and replied, "If you don't change your voice, no matter where you go, the problem will follow." The lesson? Running from criticism won't solve anything. Real change comes from within. Sometimes it's not the world that must change, it's us. 20. The newspaper vendor. An old man bought his daily newspaper from the same shop where the young vendor treated him rudely. A friend once asked, "Why don't you go to another shop? That kid's disrespectful." The old man smiled, "Because changing vendors would cost me more time and energy. His bad manners are his problem, not mine." The lesson? You can't control others' behavior, but you can choose your own peace. Don't let someone else's negativity disturb your calm. 21. The horse and the deer. Once, a horse grazed happily on a meadow. Then a deer showed up. The horse grew angry, jealous, and asked a man for help driving the deer away. The man agreed, but only if the horse wore a bridle and allowed him to ride it. The horse agreed. The deer fled, but the man never dismounted, and the horse lost its freedom forever. The lesson? Letting jealousy control you may cost more than you expect. In trying to defeat others, don't sacrifice your own freedom. 22. The blind and the deaf, two friends, one blind, one deaf, held hands and crossed a dangerous steel bridge. Others asked, "How did they manage to cross? It's treacherous and loud." The blind man said, "I couldn't see the danger, so I walked forward." The deaf man added, "I couldn't hear the rushing river, so I didn't fear it." The lesson? Sometimes, the less you see or hear, the more focused and fearless you become. Overthinking kills courage. Trust and keep walking. 23. The donkey and the well. A farmer's donkey fell into an old well. The animal cried for hours. The farmer, heartbroken, decided to put it out of misery. He began shoveling dirt into the well to bury it quickly, but something strange happened. With each shovelful, the donkey shook the dirt off and stepped on it. Eventually, the well was filled high enough, and the donkey walked right out. The lesson? Life will shovel dirt on you. Shake it off. Step up. What was meant to bury you can lift you if you choose to rise. 24. The Dog and the Mirrors. A wild dog wandered into a hall made of mirrors. Everywhere he turned, he saw dozens of fierce-looking dogs baring their teeth. Panicked, he growled and barked. The other dogs did the same. Furious, he lunged forward and crashed into the mirrors, cutting himself. Bleeding and scared, he ran out. The lesson? The world reflects what you project. Show hostility, you'll meet hostility. Approach with kindness, and kindness will greet you. 25. The Boy and the Jar of Nuts. A little boy reached into a jar filled with hazelnuts and grabbed a huge handful, but when he tried to pull his hand out, it was stuck. He began to cry. An old man nearby said, "Try taking fewer nuts. A smaller handful will come out easily." The boy let go of half, and out came his hand, free and happy. The lesson? Desire too much, and you lose everything. Learn to let go, and you'll gain more than you expect. 26. The Merchant and the Donkey. A merchant used a donkey to carry goods from town to town. One day, the donkey tripped while crossing a stream, soaking the load of salt. As the salt dissolved, the donkey felt lighter. He smiled to himself, realizing he'd found a trick. From then on, every time they crossed a river, the donkey would fall intentionally to lighten his burden. The merchant noticed, and one day replaced the salt with cotton. The donkey fell again, expecting ease, but this time the cotton soaked up water and became unbearably heavy. The lesson? There's no shortcut in life that doesn't eventually weigh you down. Laziness disguised as cleverness often ends in pain. 27. The Turtle Who Wanted to Fly. A turtle watched birds in the sky and wished he could fly. He trained, he jumped, he flapped, but no wings came. Still, he refused to give up and begged an eagle to teach him. The eagle tied fake wings to him and threw him off a cliff. The turtle soared for 2 seconds, then crashed. The lesson? Aspiration is beautiful, but chasing what isn't meant for you, ignoring your true gifts, will only bring you down. Know yourself. Grow from there. 20. The Frog and the Mouse. A frog and a mouse were good friends. One day, the mouse invited the frog to visit his home up high in a tree. The frog couldn't climb, so the mouse tied a string to his tail and told the frog, "Hold on, I'll pull you up." Halfway up, the mouse's wife came rushing out in excitement, shouting, "Oh, look! Frog's come to visit." The frog opened his mouth to reply, but the moment he did, he lost grip and fell. He landed hard, injuring his back. Ever since, frogs have bent spines and croak in pain when it rains. The lesson? Don't rush into things you don't understand. And don't climb using someone else's tail. 29. The 2 grains of rice. 2 grains of rice were selected to be seeds for the next harvest. The first said, "No way I'm being buried in the dirt. I'll hide in the barn and protect myself." The second said, "I was born to grow. Even if I die, it will be for something." Seasons passed. The first grain, hidden in a dark corner, withered into nothing. The second grain grew into a golden stalk, feeding families and giving life to many. The lesson? Protecting yourself too much is the fastest way to become nothing. Purpose requires risk, and death to ego is often the beginning of true life. 30. The jealous crow. A crow was jealous of a swan's snowy white feathers. If I live like the swan, it thought, I'll become just as beautiful. So it left the forest and lived in a lake, eating plants like the swan. But its feathers remained black. Worse, its body grew weak, and it eventually died. The lesson? Envy is blindness. You can't become someone else without losing who you're meant to be. Your greatest beauty lies in becoming the best you, not someone else. 31. The bargain at the egg stand. A young woman saw an old man selling eggs on the street. She asked, "How much for two?" $2, he said kindly. She replied coldly, "I'll give you $1 for 4 eggs. Take it or leave it." The old man hesitated, then agreed. She felt proud of her smart bargain and walked away. Later that day, she joined her friends at a luxury restaurant, paying hundreds of dollars for dinner, tipping generously. She never questioned the price. The lesson? We often bargain hardest with those who need the money most, then overpay where it means the least. Kindness costs nothing, and sometimes it's worth far more than a discount. 32. The burnt toast. When I was a kid, my mom often worked late. One night, she made dinner, and the toast was burnt black. I watched, waiting for my dad to complain, but he smiled, took a bite, and asked me about my homework. Later, I asked him, "Didn't the burnt toast bother you?" He said, "Your mom had a long day. A little burnt toast won't hurt me, but criticism might hurt her." The lesson? Love means knowing what really matters. A burnt piece of toast is nothing, but unkind words can leave lifelong scars. 33. The monk's journey. A young monk was preparing for a long journey. He told his master, "I've packed extra sandals, food, water. I'll leave next week." The old master simply smiled, then asked everyone in the temple to donate items for the monk's trip. Soon, the monk's room overflowed with food, shoes, even umbrellas. It was too much. He couldn't carry it all. Finally, the old master said, "When your heart is ready, your journey begins. All else is excess." The lesson? No matter how much you prepare on the outside, if your heart isn't ready, you're not going anywhere. Real journeys start from within. 34. The rich man's son. A wealthy father wanted to teach his son the value of life, so he took the boy to visit a poor village. On the way back, the father asked, "What did you learn?" The son replied, "We have 1 dog. They have 4. We have a pool. They have a stream. We watch TV. They gaze at stars. We buy food. They grow it. We have walls to protect us. They have friends." Then the boy added softly, "Thanks, Dad, for showing me how poor we really are." The lesson? True wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we feel, what we share, and who we love. 35. The scholar and the boatman. A proud scholar once boarded a ferry, sitting next to a simple boatman. To pass time, he challenged the boatman with riddles. "If you can't answer, give me 5 coins, he said smugly. "If I can't answer yours, I'll give you 10. The boatman nodded. First riddle. What lives in the sea, weighs a kilo in water, but 10 on land? The boatman had no idea. He handed over 5 coins. Then the boatman asked, "What creature walks the earth, sings in the sky, and swims in dreams?" The scholar was stumped. He thought, calculated, sweated, then gave up. Fine, I owe you 10. But what's the answer? The boatman smiled. I don't know either, and handed back 5. The lesson? Wisdom doesn't always come from books. Arrogance blinds us to the cleverness hidden in simplicity. 36. The donkey and the mule. A donkey and a mule were both loaded with goods. The donkey complained, I'm carrying the same weight as you, yet you get double the food. The mule said nothing. Soon the donkey grew tired. The master moved some of his load onto the mule. The donkey gasped, Now you carry more than me, and still no complaints? The mule turned and said, I don't talk much, I just walk. The lesson? The world rewards those who carry their weight with humility. Pride speaks, wisdom walks. 37. Who's really the fool? There was a new teacher at school who noticed a student being teased. The kid said, He's so dumb. Watch this. One of them offered the boy 2 coins, a large 5-cent piece and a small 10-cent one. The boy always picked the 5 cents. The teacher called him aside and asked, Why do you always choose the bigger coin? Don't you know it's worth less? The boy smiled. If I pick the 10 cents, they'll stop giving me the game. But this way, I've been getting free money for weeks. The lesson? Sometimes pretending not to know is the smartest thing you can do. 38. The dog and his reflection. A dog once crossed a bridge with a juicy bone in his mouth. He looked down into the water and saw what he thought was another dog, with a bigger bone. Greedy, he barked. But the moment he opened his mouth, his bone fell into the river and was lost forever. The lesson? Chasing what others have may cost you what you already hold. Greed blinds us to gratitude. 39. The 2 cats and the monkey judge. 2 cats found a piece of cheese and argued over who deserved more. They brought it to a monkey, asking him to divide it fairly. The monkey tore it in 2, but one piece was slightly bigger, so he bit off some to even them out. Then the other piece was bigger, so he bit that too. He kept evening them out until there was barely any cheese left. Finally, he said, Seems there's nothing left to divide, so I'll keep the rest for my services. The lesson? When we let outsiders settle our personal disputes, we often lose more than we gain. 40. The boy and the puppies. A little boy saw a sign outside a shop, Puppies for sale. He asked the owner how much they cost. Anywhere from $30 to $50, the man replied. The boy emptied his pocket. He had only $2.37. Can I just look at them? He asked. The man whistled and 5 puppies came running, one lagged behind, limping badly. What's wrong with that one? The boy asked. He was born with a defect. He'll never walk properly, said the man. The boy pointed. That's the one I want. The man said, You don't want that puppy. He'll never run, play, or fetch. The boy bent down, rolled up his pant leg, revealing a metal brace on his own leg. He looked up and whispered, I don't run so well myself. He'll need someone who understands. The lesson? Kindness sees with the heart, not the eyes. Real connection comes from shared struggle. 41. The jay and the peacock feathers. A plain little jaybird walked past a garden full of peacocks and found some of their beautiful feathers on the ground. He picked them up, tucked them into his tail, and strutted around proudly, pretending to be a peacock. But the real peacocks noticed the fake right away. They plucked the feathers off and chased him out. The other jays saw him return and refused to let him join them either. The lesson? Pretending to be someone else often means losing who you are. Be proud of your own feathers. 42. Don't argue over shadows. A traveler rented a donkey for a desert journey. The sun was blazing, and at noon he sat in the donkey's shadow to cool off. The donkey's owner said, "You paid to ride him, not to sit in his shadow." "Move," the traveler replied. "I paid for the whole donkey. The shadow's part of the deal." They began arguing, louder and louder. Meanwhile, the donkey got annoyed and walked off. The lesson? Arguing over small things can make you lose everything. Don't let ego cost you what matters. 43. The bell on the best cow. Every day, a shepherd would lead his cows to graze in the fields. He placed a beautiful golden bell around the neck of his finest cow so he could always hear where it was. One day, a stranger saw the shining bell. He approached the shepherd and said, "That bell is worth a fortune. I'll buy it from you." Greedy, the shepherd agreed. He sold the bell, but now he had no way of tracking his best cow. Worse yet, the stranger used the opportunity to steal the cow, and the shepherd didn't even notice until it was too late. The lesson? In chasing short-term gain, we often lose what matters most. Don't trade long-term value for temporary profit. 44. The greedy man who wanted the magic finger. There was once a wise old sage who could turn anything he touched into gold. One day, a man came to him and said, "Please teach me your secret. I want to be rich like you." The sage smiled and agreed to give him a gift. He pointed to a stone and turned it into gold, then to a pebble, also gold. Finally, the sage gave the man a small golden rock as a gift. The man looked at it and frowned. "I don't want this. I want your finger. That way, I can turn anything into gold myself." The sage's smile disappeared. He said nothing, turned around, and walked away. The lesson? Greed knows no limit. If you're never satisfied with a gift, you may lose the giver and the gift. 45. The hen that laid golden eggs. A poor farmer once received a gift from the heavens, a hen that laid one golden egg each day. The farmer and his wife lived comfortably from the eggs, but soon greed crept in. They thought, if she lays one golden egg per day, imagine how many must be inside her. So they killed the hen to take all the gold at once. There were no more eggs, just a regular bird, and the golden days were gone forever. The lesson? Impatience ruins prosperity. Appreciate what you have. Consistency often builds more than bursts of fortune. 46. The rabbit who dug his own escape. One morning, a little rabbit was hopping happily across the hill when a wolf began to chase him. Terrified, the rabbit darted under bushes, over rocks, until he reached a tree with a large root. There, he had once dug a tunnel, just in case of danger. Without thinking, he slipped inside and escaped. Later, while catching his breath, he realized something powerful. If he had always relied on others to protect him, he wouldn't be here now. The lesson? Prepare before the storm. Self-reliance is the safest shelter. 47. The frog at the bottom of the well. There was once a frog who lived happily in a well. He thought the sky was only as wide as the hole above his head. One day, a sea turtle came by and told him about the ocean. "Impossible," said the frog. "I know the world. This well is the world." The turtle laughed kindly. You won't know how small your world is until you step outside it. The lesson? Limited experience creates limited vision. To grow, we must look beyond our own well. 48. Carrying the donkey into town. A father and son were walking their donkey into the town market. First, the father rode the donkey while the son walked. People sneered. What kind of father rides while his child walks? So the father got down and let the son ride. Then others muttered, what a disrespectful child riding while his old father walks. So they both rode the donkey. Now people whispered, cruelty. That poor animal's carrying two people. In frustration, they tied the donkey's legs to a stick and carried it. Crowds laughed at the absurd sight. The donkey, scared, kicked free and ran away, lost forever. The lesson? Trying to please everyone often means pleasing no one, and losing what you care about in the process. Stand firm in your own path. 49. The clever wordplay Lu Gongfu was known for his sharp wit and love for playful banter. One day, Su Dongpo, a scholar, told him, my brother and I, when we studied far from home, survived on nothing but 3 whites: white rice, white radish, and salt. Nothing is better than this dish. Lu Gongfu laughed and nodded. Months later, he invited Su Dongpo to dinner and served white rice, white radish, and salt. Dongpo, a man of his word, ate it all without complaint. The next day, he invited Lu to his house for a meal called 3 Nothings. When Lu arrived, he waited and waited, but no food came. Finally, Dongpo explained, no rice, no radish, no salt. That's the true 3 Nothings. The lesson? Wit can be a double-edged sword. Make sure you're ready to take what you give. 50. The ungrateful wolf. A kind man once rescued an injured wolf, hiding it in a sack to protect it from hunters. After the danger passed, he opened the sack only for the wolf to growl and say, I'm starving. I'll eat you now. Shocked, the man said, you can't. I saved your life. The wolf replied, in the forest, this is normal. The strong survive. They decided to ask passers-by whether the wolf's behavior was right. An old ox, a tree, and a tired dog all said the same. People use us and discard us. So yes, this is the way of the world. Finally, a wise elder arrived. Show me how the wolf was in the sack, he said. The wolf climbed in, and the elder quickly tied it up. Compassion for the cruel only invites cruelty, he said. The lesson? Kindness is noble, but kindness without wisdom may be punished by betrayal. 51. Smash the fantasy early. A young farmer received a single egg from a neighbor. He couldn't sleep that night. This egg will hatch into a chick, then more chickens, then eggs, then I'll sell them and build a chicken farm. I'll become rich, buy a mansion, marry a second wife. His wife overheard and yelled, "Second wife!" In rage, she smashed the egg. The next day, he sued her in court. When the judge heard the story, he said, "She broke your dreams, not your wealth." The wife responded, "And he planned betrayal before even having a farm." The judge chuckled, "Then you were right to smash it." The lesson? Don't build castles in the sky. And if you must, don't pack betrayal into the blueprints. 52. Seeking truth. Two scholars were deep in debate. "Who's closer to you, your spouse or your parents?" asked one. Parents, of course, replied the other. They're your roots. But your spouse is your partner in life, the first argued. You sleep together, die together. That bond is stronger. True, said the second, but without roots, the tree dies. A wheel can be replaced. Parents are irreplaceable. They couldn't agree. The lesson? Truth depends on where you stand. What's right for you may not be right for all. Respecting perspective is wisdom. 53. The gentle moon, the fierce sun. Two sisters were as different as night and day. The elder, Hang, was quiet, kind, and soft-spoken. The younger, Nga, was bold, beautiful, and fiery. Nga hated being stared at and often snapped at admirers. If you look at me again, I'll blind you. Hang told her, don't change who you are, but sometimes hiding is stronger than fighting. They became symbols in the sky. Nga, the sun, brilliant, powerful, but hard to look at. Hang, the moon, gentle, mysterious, admired by all. The lesson? Power commands respect. Grace earns love. 54. Butterfly Dream. The philosopher Zhuangzi once dreamt he was a butterfly, floating freely, full of joy. When he woke up, he wondered, was I a man dreaming I was a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Later, while walking with his friend Huizi, Zhuangzi said, look at those fish. They're so happy. Huizi replied, how do you know what fish feel? You're not a fish. Zhuangzi smiled, and how do you know I don't know how they feel? You're not me. The lesson? We can't always explain joy. Sometimes we just feel it. And that's enough. 55. A melody for the soul boya was a master of the 7-string zither. He could play melodies that painted mountains in the mind and oceans in the heart. His best friend, Zhang Ziqi, wasn't a musician, but he understood music deeply. When Boya played of stormy mountains, Zhang would say, I see the thunder rolling over the cliffs. When Boya played of gentle rain, Zhang would smile. That's the soft drizzle on a thatched roof. They were more than friends. They were kindred spirits. But one day, Zhang Ziqi fell ill and died. Boya stood by his grave, played a final melody filled with grief, love, and memory. When the last note faded, he shattered his zither. If no one can understand my music like you did, he whispered, then I will never play again. The lesson? A true friend understands not your words, but your silence, your rhythm, your soul. Treasure those who truly hear you. 56. Naming the cat. Li Jia had a remarkable cat. Golden fur, razor-sharp reflexes. It scared off every rat in sight. Proud of his pet, Li decided to throw a party to choose the perfect name. It's fierce like a tiger, he mused. I'll call it Tiger Cat. But a dragon beats a tiger, someone offered. Right, Dragon Cat. But clouds are needed for dragons to fly. Cloud Cat then. But wind can blow clouds away. Wind Cat. But bed stands strong against wind. Bed Cat. But rats chew beds. Rat Cat. Everyone laughed. Finally, an old man said, why complicate it? Just call a cat. A cat. And so he did. The lesson? We often overthink. Simplicity and authenticity are often more meaningful than elaborate labels. 57. Harm others, harm yourself. A new king had two close friends, a painter and an architect. He favored the architect, which made the painter jealous. So the painter forged a letter, pretending it was from the deceased king. It claimed the architect must be sent to heaven to build a celestial palace. "How do we send him to heaven?" asked the new king. "Set him atop firewood. Light it. The gods will take him," said the painter. The architect knew it was a trap, but calmly agreed. First, he built a tunnel beneath the pyre and escaped. A month later, disguised with pale skin and white clothes, he returned to court. "I've come from heaven," he said, "but they now request the finest painter." The king, delighted, sent the jealous painter the same way. This time, there was no tunnel. The lesson? Jealousy burns its master first. The fire you light for others may become your own funeral pyre. 58. The art of wealth. A poor man once asked a rich man, "How did you get so wealthy?" The rich man replied, "In year 1, I worked to survive. In year 2, I saved a little. By year 3, I had enough to grow my wealth." Inspired, the poor man decided to get rich quick. He stole from others until he was caught and jailed. When released, he angrily returned. "You lied to me. I followed your method and ended up in prison." The rich man calmly explained, "My method was labor and patience. Yours was theft and shortcuts." The lesson? True wealth takes time, effort, and honesty. Stealing another's fruit doesn't plant your own tree. 59. Songs from the people. La, a highly educated man, wanted to write folk songs, but his compositions, though elegant, didn't resonate. His sister advised, "Write about love, heartbreak, everyday life. Speak the people's language." He listened. La crafted new songs full of heart and humility. One day, he heard a woman singing beautifully by the river. It was Liu, a village girl known for her unmatched talent. La boasted about his new compositions. Liu smiled and asked, "How many boats did you bring these songs in?" "9, he replied. 3 from Fujian, 3 from Hainan, and 3 from here." Liu laughed. "True songs don't come from boats. They come from the belly." La was humbled. He tossed his lyrics into the river. The lesson? Art must come from life. The heart writes better than the head. 60. Dancers in a cage. A wealthy man adored birds. His aviary was the finest in the land, housing hundreds of colorful dancers and singers. One day, he heard about a pair of birds famed for their graceful dances and sweet melodies. He paid a fortune to bring them to his cage. At first, they sang and danced beautifully, but over time, their joy faded. Their routines grew dull. They sat silently, staring out the bars. The caretaker whispered, "Master, even birds need freedom to fly, not gold cages. Talent withers when locked away." The lesson? Creativity needs air. Passion cannot survive in prisons, no matter how lavish. Let freedom fuel your gift. 61. The white plum tree. In ancient China, love often bowed to status. Marriages were arranged for wealth, not affection. One wealthy farmer had a daughter so beautiful that suitors lined up with lavish gifts. A jeweler promised her gems. A merchant offered her the finest clothes. A chef vowed she'd never go hungry. But her heart belonged to Huang, a poor cowherd with nothing but love to give. When her father discovered the truth, he flew into a rage. Marry a peasant? Never! He shouted and threw Huang out. Heartbroken, she chased after her beloved. They ran far into the countryside until, cold and exhausted, they rested beneath a withered roof. Snow began to fall. The wind howled. But in the darkness, they held each other. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "No," Huang whispered. "Only afraid of losing you." By dawn, they had frozen side by side, still holding hands. Where their bodies lay, 2 trees bloomed, one pink, one pure white. Every winter since, the twin trees blossomed through frost and snow, symbols of a love stronger than class, wealth, or death. The lesson? True love does not ask for permission. It simply is. 62. The Man Who Moved Mountains. There was once an old man named Yu Gong who lived at the base of 2 giant mountains. They blocked his path to the village, making every trip difficult. One day, Yu Gong gathered his family and said, "We will dig through these mountains. We'll make a road." His neighbors laughed. "You're too old. How can you possibly move a mountain?" But Yu Gong replied, "I may not finish, but my children will, and their children, and their children's children. The mountains won't grow, but we will." He began digging, day by day, stone by stone. His determination moved more than rocks. It moved heaven. So deeply touched, the gods sent a spirit down to carry the mountains away. The lesson? With patience and persistence, even the impossible bends to human will. 63. The Horse That Ran Away. An old man's horse escaped and ran across the border. His neighbors came to console him. "What bad luck," they said. But the man replied, "Who knows? This could be a blessing." Days later, the horse returned, bringing with it a strong stallion from across the border. Everyone cheered. "What good luck!" But the man simply said, "Who knows? This could be a curse." His son, thrilled with the new horse, went riding and fell, breaking his leg. The neighbors returned. "Oh, what terrible luck!" But again the old man said, "Who knows?" A week later, a war broke out. Every able young man was drafted, except his son, who was spared because of the injury. The lesson? Fortune and misfortune are 2 faces of the same coin. Don't rush to judge what life brings. 64. The Hat That Saved Me. One scorching summer, a man went walking with a thick wool hat on his head. It was unbearably hot and the sweat poured from his face. He stopped under a tree, removed the hat, and fanned himself. With great relief, he said aloud, "Thank goodness I had this hat today. I would have died from heat stroke without it." He failed to see the irony. The hat had caused his suffering, not relieved it. The lesson? When we don't understand the root of our problems, we may end up thanking the very thing that harms us. 65. The Cloak of Invisibility. A traveler met a mysterious old man who handed him a magical leaf. "This will make you invisible," the old man whispered. "No one will see you as long as you carry it." The traveler laughed with glee and ran into town. He stole coins from people's pockets, convinced he could never be caught. One man robbed turned and slapped him hard. The thief, stunned, shouted, "Hey! How did you hit me if you can't see me?" The man stared. "Who said I couldn't see you?" The lesson: self-deception is the most dangerous kind of blindness. You may fool others, but never yourself. 66. The Beetle and the Official. A poor young man wandered the streets, chewing on beetle shells just to survive. One day, a well-dressed government official saw him and took pity. "Come, join me for dinner," he said kindly. But the young man puffed up his chest. "Oh no, sir. I've just feasted on dog meat this morning. I'm full." The official was confused. "Dog meat? Really?" "Yes," the man lied, "but I'll join you for a drink." He took a single sip of wine, then vomited beetle shells all over the floor. The official stared at the mess. "I thought you ate dog meat." The man stammered, "Well, the dog ate beetles. So, technically, I did too." The lesson: arrogance without substance will always reveal itself. Pretending to be more than you are only makes the fall harder. 67. The Arrogant Scholar. There was once a scholar who loved to boast. One day, over tea, he told his friend, "From the beginning of time, only 3 true sages have ever walked this earth." He raised one finger. First, Pangu, the creator of the universe. He split the sky from the earth. No one can rival that. He raised a second finger. Second, Confucius, the wisest of teachers. Then with a grin, he paused and leaned closer. And the third, well, that's me. The lesson: arrogance is often just ignorance in disguise. The louder someone boasts, the less they usually know. 68. The Rich Fool. A wealthy landowner had a son. The boy was grown, but foolish, always wasting money and bragging about his cleverness. Wanting to teach him responsibility, the father said, "You can't even tell rice from barley. Go out into the world, learn something useful." The boy agreed. The first thing he saw was a stone mason carving 2 lions out of marble. He was fascinated. He asked to buy them, one big, one small. The sculptor smirked and said, "Sure, the big one is 5,000 gold coins. The small, just 3 cent." The boy, without hesitation, bought the small lion and hurried home to brag. When his father saw what he had spent, he groaned. 3,000 gold for a useless rock? You've wasted your inheritance." But the son just laughed. "Father, this is only the small mistake. Wait till you see the big one. I bought that lion too." The lesson: without wisdom, money is a curse. A fool will always find a way to ruin wealth faster than they earned it. 69. Pretending to know the man once opened a pawn shop, but he had no idea how to assess value. A customer brought in a wooden flute. The man examined it and said, looks like a bamboo stick. $1. Another brought in a jade teacup. The man said, "Glassware? $2. Then someone came in with an old rag, dirty and torn. The man's eyes lit up. "This must be an ancient ceremonial cloth. I'll give you 5. The rag was a used handkerchief. His assistant asked, "Sir, why would you pay $5 for that?" The owner replied, "If he doesn't come back to redeem it, I can use it to wipe my mouth." The lesson: faking expertise is dangerous. Better to admit what you don't know than to make a fool of yourself in front of others. 70. The tower and the chair. A nobleman had a small wooden stool. It was so short that sitting on it was uncomfortable. One day, he had a bright idea. If I put the stool at the top of the tower, I'll sit higher. So he carried the stool up to the roof, but once seated, it was still just a stool. Frustrated, he yelled, "This tower is a lie. It's not high at all." He then ordered the tower torn down. The lesson? Changing your environment won't fix a broken perspective. If the problem is with the chair, moving it won't help. 71. The death row prisoner. A man sentenced to death was being escorted to the execution grounds. Halfway there, he asked, "Could I borrow a jacket? I'm worried about catching a cold." Everyone looked at him in disbelief. Then he heard a hoarse neigh and quickly spat on the ground 3 times. "It's bad luck," he muttered. When they arrived, he asked the executioner, "Can you please wipe the blade first? If it's dirty, I might get an infection." The lesson? Sometimes we focus on the smallest fears while ignoring the biggest truths. Worrying about a cold when you're facing death is the peak of denial. 72. The frog in the pit. One day, a group of frogs were hopping through the forest when 2 of them fell into a deep pit. The others peered down and said, "It's hopeless. You'll never make it out." One frog believed them. He gave up and died, but the other kept jumping. "Stop!" the frog shouted. "You're wasting your energy." But the frog just kept trying, higher and higher, until finally he leapt out of the pit. The others were stunned. "Didn't you hear us?" they asked. The frog smiled. "Oh, I'm deaf. I thought you were cheering me on." The lesson: sometimes the best thing you can do is not listen. Especially when others tell you you're not good enough. 73. The frog and the shadow. A group of frogs were traveling through the woods when 2 of them fell into a deep pit. The others peered over the edge and shouted, "It's too deep. You'll never get out." One frog believed them. He gave up and slowly faded away. But the second frog kept jumping, higher and higher. The others screamed, "Stop trying! You'll die down there!" But the frog didn't stop. With one final leap, he soared out of the pit. The group was stunned. "Why didn't you listen?" they asked. The frog smiled and signed, "I'm deaf. I thought you were cheering for me." The lesson? Sometimes it's a blessing not to hear the voices of doubt. Silence the noise, and you just might surprise everyone, including yourself. 74. The honest farmer and the buttery lie. Long ago, a farmer sold homemade butter to the local baker. One day, the baker decided to weigh the butter to see if he was getting a full pound. He wasn't. Angry, he took the farmer to court. The judge asked, "How do you weigh your butter?" The farmer replied, "I don't have a scale. I just use the baker's 1-pound loaf of bread. I place it on my scale and match it with the butter." The courtroom fell silent. The lesson? What you give is what you get. Dishonesty has a way of finding its way back to its source. 75. The King's Boulder. A king once placed a giant boulder in the middle of the main road, then hid nearby to watch. Rich merchants and courtiers passed by, grumbling at the obstacle. Why doesn't someone move this rock? But no one did anything. Then a poor farmer arrived. He set down his load and with great effort pushed the boulder aside. Underneath he found a pouch of gold with a note. "This is for the one who removes the stone from the path." The lesson? Every obstacle is an opportunity. While some complain, others act. And they're the ones who find the treasure. 76. The butterfly's struggle. A man found a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. Out of compassion, he used scissors to help it out. But the butterfly emerged with a swollen body and shriveled wings. It never learned to fly. What the man didn't realize was, the struggle was necessary. It pushes fluid from the body into the wings, preparing it for flight. The lesson? Struggles build strength. Don't rob someone of their growth by making things too easy, or they may never soar. 77. The old man's secret to happiness. There was once a grumpy old man who complained about everything. Everyone in the village avoided him. Then, on his 80th birthday, something changed. He smiled, he laughed. The villagers were stunned. "What happened?" they asked. The old man said, "For 80 years I chased happiness. It never worked, so I stopped chasing and started living." The lesson? Happiness isn't found by chasing it. It comes when you choose to enjoy life as it is, moment by moment. 78. The greedy lion. On a scorching day, a lion spotted a rabbit. Too small, he thought. I'll wait for a bigger meal. Then he saw a deer in the distance. Perfect, he growled. But as he crept toward the deer, it ran into the forest. He turned back for the rabbit. It was gone too. The lesson? Don't let greed rob you of what's already in your hands. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.